I'm super excited. We got a lot to go through, so I'm kind of just going to jump in. We are in Luke 12, starting in verse 41. We'll go through this first verse. We'll ask a couple questions to get us started, and then we'll answer those questions as we go. So, Luke 12, starting in verse 41. Then Peter said to him, "Lord, do you speak this parable only to us or to all people?" So first off, what parable is Peter talking about? So Jesus has just dealt with a guy who basically he asked Jesus, "Will you be the mediator in my family's inheritance?" and like splitting that out evenly. Jesus basically says, like, you shouldn't be focused on those things, and he shares the parable of the man who builds more grain barns but then dies that night, so he doesn't even actually get to enjoy all the wealth that he stored up. And then he shifts to his disciples, and he's telling them the parable of seek first the kingdom of heaven and his righteousness, and all these things will be, given to you. All that you'll need will be provided, right? And then he talks about good slaves or good bondservants that wait for their master's return, right? And they do well with what they have been given. So we shouldn't worry about these things. The Lord's going to give those things to us, whatever that we need. And the things that he does give to us, we should be good stewards, right? We should be faithful servants while the master is away. And so that's kind of the parable that Peter is asking about to the Lord. And he says, are you talking to just us, like the 12, the disciples? Are you talking to anyone? So is this just for Peter? Or does this also include you and me here in 2025? So in verse 42, and the Lord said, "Who then is that faithful and wise steward whom his master will make ruler over his household, to give them their portion of food in due season? Blessed is that servant whom his master will find so doing when he comes. Truly I say to you that he will make him ruler over all that he has." So, kind of classic Jesus here. He answers a question with a question, right? So he's not directly answering this, but what he's saying is, who is the one that Jesus is talking about that should be a faithful servant, right? Well, anyone who wants to be a faithful servant, anyone who is a wise steward of what the Lord is going to give them, right? And will be found faithful when Christ returns. That's the person that Jesus is speaking to. So not everyone directly, but anyone can become that person, right? So even with you and me, as followers of Christ, we want to become that person, right? Faithful followers of Christ. So with that in mind, what else does Jesus have to say now that we know he's also talking to us and Peter? But if that servant, this is in verse 45, but if that servant says in his heart, "My master is delaying his coming," and begins to beat the male and female servants and to eat and drink and be drunk, the master of that servant will come on a day when he is not looking for him, and an hour when he is not aware, and he will cut him in two and appoint him his portion with the unbelievers. So this is strong wording, right? And that servant who knew his master's will and did not prepare himself or do according to his will shall be beaten with many stripes. But he who did not know, yet committed things deserving of stripes, shall be beaten with few. For everyone to whom much is given, from him much will be required. And to whom much has been committed, of him they will ask the more. So Jesus is now bringing out this principle that we're faithful, we focus on the kingdom, the Lord provides for us, he gives us. But as he sees us being faithful with things, he then begins to give us more, right? More control, more the privilege of having a piece of his kingdom, right? And more that he gives us. And so we kind of see this in an interesting light. Basically, like if we're Peter, we think about what all Peter is going to be for the kingdom of God. This is a really strong warning, right? When we're following the Lord, he calls us to great things, each and every one of us in our particular ways, right? Whether that's being the light to our coworkers, we may be the only believer that they ever know, right? Or being the foundation for a child when they're in kids ministry class and you're that first layer of Christianity you help pour into their life, right? Or being the light and beacon to an unbelieving spouse, right? That's an amazing thing that the Lord has given us. And so we must be faithful servants with what he's given us. And we take this as a warning, right? A strong warning that the Lord is saying, I'm going to give you great things, right? I'm going to give you a piece of my kingdom for you to steward over, but I need you to steward it well and to be a good, faithful servant so that when Christ returns, he'll find us being faithful and not abusing what the Lord has given us. And I think each and every one of us can relate to something that the Lord has given us, whether it's children or a familial relationship or a friend relationship or a certain area of ministry that we're involved in. We are a steward of that. And for this morning, I really pray that you guys would consider this warning to be faithful, to be a good servant of what the Lord has given us. And I pray that that impacts you and challenges you this morning. I know the Lord has been working that really in my heart over the last several weeks to be faithful with what he has given me, where I'm at. And I pray that he does that for you this morning.